So today I have two guests who are here to talk about their entrepreneurship journey, give us some tea on entrepreneurship. They are actually, a partner of mine. We do business together. So I love when I talk to people who I do business with, because when we are talking, we're talking from perspective, right? And then not only that, we're talking about firsthand experience, not secondhand experience, firsthand experience of what we've encountered through our journey. So today I have two guests who would join me to have a conversation today. I will allow them to introduce themselves because I think this is a first for Entrepreneurship Tea. This is the first time we've had two guests at the same time, and you guys will find out why later once they start introducing themselves. So I have Steve Idowu, and I also have Kay Anifowose. Anyways, Kay will come. We practice backstage. But the practice didn't go well last name by now, but I don't think I've ever had an opportunity to even try to pronounce his first name. But I think I get a pass because I've known Kim for several years now. But I will allow them to introduce themselves. And then after that, I will come in and we'll start this conversation because I think today is going to be a pleasant conversation for you guys. So let's start with Steve. Steve, since you're on my right hand, tell us about yourself and tell us basically what your experiences has been like, but I want you to think as far back as you can go and just introduce yourself to us.
Oh wow, how long do I have? So Idowu, I like to start with sharing most important aspect of my life. I'm a father of two, so that's the biggest part of my life. I'm a family man through and through. As you mentioned, entrepreneur, co-founder of Gtma. We'll talk about Gtma as you alluded to earlier. So I'm gonna probably hold off on getting into what we are and what we do. Part of my skill is, I've been a business and technology consultant and a professional for over 17 years now, where I've worked with Fortune 100 organizations and leadership, CEO alike, helping them think through technology, business strategy, and how those two sort of intersect together. Over the past 8 years, 2018, I've been fortunate to be doing more AI and sort of innovation where, our customers and clients. So back then we was mostly doing more advanced analytics, I would call it, where we're doing some predictive modeling. And then obviously we all know OpenAI kind of blew things up in 2022, 2023. But I've been sort of had a head start on that about 4 years prior. So that's kind of the other thing that kind of keep me busy. And then in addition to both living a life as an entrepreneur, supporting my clients on their AI journey, I also enjoy coaching my children in the various sporting activities that they do. I also moonlight as an agent for a lot of my friends when it comes to negotiating salaries, pay, promotion. Basically doing any sort of deals. I'm usually the guy that they call and reach out to. So,
so kind of like a career coach, low key.
Career coaches would be a good way to kind of describe it. So keep very busy, got my hands in a lot of different things. I advise several different startups, both here in the States and also in Africa, across the continent, as they start their journey and think about how they scale their businesses and their ideas oftentimes that's not fully blown yet. So thank you for not only doing business with us at Gtma, but for bringing us on. We're transcenders, and so being the first duo, I think we're going to go down in the entrepreneur
history.
Panels.
You guys are going down in history. Well, up to you, my lovely friend Kay.
So thank you so much. As Steve mentioned, really, really excited to see you kick off this. I remember running to you one of the events, I believe sometimes last year, and I whispered to you, like, when are you going to call us? When are you going to call me to come feature on your program? And ever since I've been marking my calendar, she says soon. So let's see how soon that's going to be. And I'm glad the soon has taken about 1 year, but we're here now. So my full name, which is Nigerian name, is Oluwatikayomide. Has brought me my joy and my happiness. But most people call me Kay. Makes it very easy for people. And
For people like
Anifowose
me.
Anifowose is my last name. I just am very similar to Steve. I'm a father. I have daughters. My daughter actually turned 15 last Monday, and my son is gonna be turning 18.
Nice.
5'11". It's already a big man. I'm a people's person. I'm a community leader, very passionate about my superpower. It's my ability to bring people together and elevate people. I genuinely care about people's success. I just want to see, especially the young generation, always just want to be part of the good stories and help. Founded the Nigerian Professional Group about 7 years ago that has continued to grow, which has about 3,000 members with a very strong structure. We run different programming, mentorship, and it's all about the passion for helping people grow and bringing communities together. And also really so fortunate to be a co-founder with this gentleman here. And it's also born out of the passion to help. What we're doing with the MPG is helping young professionals in diaspora. And what we're doing with the Gtma is helping young professionals back home in Africa, starting from Nigeria. It's all kind of like there's an intersection with all of the things that we do. Beyond that, my 9 to 5 work for, it's about 20 years plus of professional experience. I'm a chartered accountant, currently pursuing my executive PhD in business and strategy innovation at Bentley University, which I'll be wrapping up this year. And it's all focused on business strategy and, as a matter of fact, what we're doing at Gtma. And I've been within the global finance space, supporting senior leaders with the financial planning, financial operations strategy. I've been fortunate to work across different continents. I started from Nigeria and here. I'm really excited to be part of this. And also thanks to you for giving us this platform to share our story and also tie that to the work we do at Gtma. So thank you.
Well, you guys are making my head swell. So you guys are making my head swell. But before we even go into this interview, I know you guys mentioned the NPG, Nigerian Professional Network, right? I do want to say to all my audience that are watching, few years ago, I think it's been 2 years now. Yeah, 2 years now.
Yeah, 2023.
The
3 years.
Yeah, 3 years. So the Nigerian Professional Network bestowed the ultimate honor by giving me
Yeah.
honorary Nigerian title. But not only that, but also awarding me the Young Leaders Award, right? Young Business Leaders Award 3
Business
years.
award.
So it's
Yeah,
been 3 years
2022.
now. Yeah, since I won that award. So thank you guys for seeing me. I know that award was triggered by my mentor, Gazi, who hopefully she will be on this podcast soon.
She's a busy woman.
I do have to tie her down. So, but one day she'll come. But she was the one who nominated me for that award. And Kate, obviously, that's how I came across you. And we've continued that relationship over the years. And then Steve, I'm just getting to know you this year. And already I can tell that, is a long-term relationship. So thank you all for what you do. I know from what I know about the two of you, you guys do have passion about helping young people, not just that, young people from the African continent, right? And just making sure that they too don't get left behind through the progress that we're experiencing globally. I know, Kay, you and I, we were both in New York last year. Was it last year? Yes, last year at the General Assembly?
Yes, the
UN.
UN General Assembly, and just hearing the conversations that they were having about where the future is heading, right? And from the conversations that has been held across the world, the future is Africa, right?
Africa.
The future is Africa, with Africa having the youngest population, okay? And obviously with technology and the global market, the world becoming more of a global market, the next phase or the next global power lies in Africa right now. So, what I really do want to get an understanding from you guys was, one, what inspired you guys to start GTMA? Okay. And also then we can go into, like, the specific of it, but what really led to the inspiration that made you to want to start GTMA?
I can go first, and then we'll get. And like you said, Steve and I, we align a lot. We're like twins in a lot of things. We share the same thoughts, we share the same perspective, and has made it very easy to be on this journey together. We started off the Nigerian professional group, and seeing, which was born out of solving a lot of gaps and filling a lot of gaps and solving a lot of problems. Part of what we identified was the challenges a lot of young professional face, especially people of color and Africans migrating to the United States, and how difficult that could be navigating and finding the mentors, finding the right community, and being able to integrate into the system and be able to transition into corporate from school. And so I think we've been able to do a lot of great work in that space, contributing to the community and helping. And then as we began to do a lot on that space, there's also the gap that began to see with the interactions with a lot of professionals, Nigerians, Africans. We are very smart. We're very hardworking. I see when it comes to like the business process outsourcing markets, the destination is somewhere else. You go to China, you go to Philippines. Then the question is, why, if we're this smart, people not going to us? And it's actually part of my research focus in my PhD.
Okay.
And so I began to like ask this question, like, we're very smart and we interact with a lot of very hardworking professionals, and why are we not getting all these spotlights? Why are we not getting these global opportunities? And then I reached out to Steve. We started talking about, like, bro, what's going on? Like, we see all these guys with first class. Like, told me that works for you. She has first class in one of the top universities in Africa. And these are people who should be at the forefront of the global outsourcing opportunity, but they don't. So, and for us to be able to solve that, we started having this conversation. And the second part of why is, there's this slogan in Nigeria, and I believe in other part of Africa, they call it Japa. Japa means people who want to physically migrate, which is what a lot of us did, right? But not everybody will get on the aircraft to actually physically relocate. So what happens to those talents that are left behind and they're very great? And so for us, we want to solve, what we're doing is solving for those talents that doesn't have the opportunity to migrate physically, but they can still migrate their skills within the global space. So I'll leave the rest for Steve, because you can tell I'm very passionate about this, so I can keep going. But Steve.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you nailed the core of why we started, to answer your question, Patience, and that's the core of why we started. As Kay mentioned, there are probably 100 other reasons why. As we sat down, I remember sitting down in the cafeteria and kind of going through this and talking about some of the our reasons why, right? It fits in our mission and our vision statement. If you go to our website, you'll learn a lot about some of the reasons why we're doing what we're doing. I think there's with every challenge there's an opportunity, right? So Kay has talked a lot about it from a different perspective. I would add another perspective, from a business perspective, from business leaders like you perspective. We've had a lot of conversations from folks that are saying, the market is crazy, finding the right talent has been a challenge for them. And so, coupled with Kay's sort of point earlier about, there's a lot of smart people, we're also hearing it from the other side again. So we thought, hey, there's an opportunity here to kind of connect the dots, right? For people that are looking for really smart folks, how do we connect those resources, right? So, and that's really the third stool, I would say, that kind of sprung the idea about Gtma. So making sure that we're able to connect businesses, entrepreneurs that are starting on their journey, that they don't have maybe necessarily the capital of a Fortune 1000 organization, right? But their ideas are just as strong and is life changing for our people, right? And so, and the other piece I would add to Kay's point around companies going to non-African countries is that, we know the value of currency and what it is in our continent. And so, that amount can transform not only an individual's life, but also a community. Right. So that's the other piece that really drove us to say, okay, we should make this more than just an idea. Let's make this a reality. Let's start working on it. And so, it's been a journey. This is the conversation that we're talking about started years ago, but now we're starting to see fruits of it. So, in short, there's a lot of reasons why we started, but I would say those are probably like the three bucket of what really drove us to get going.
Yeah. To add to that, the transaction cost theory, which is one of the foundation for us, creating that efficiency for small, medium enterprise. The cost of operating a business in the United States is really high. You have to pay compensation and benefits and all the stuff. And so it's a win-win when we think about how that translates for small business and helping you to build and scale.
Right.
And also for those talents, not just at the family level or an individual level, but also at the country level. Because now the purchasing power of those talents, is increased. And then it also translates that, so there's a ripple effect to the small business enterprise here in the United States, Canada, UK, and also for the talent. Again, we can go on about like the different business, the different reasons. What did you say, Steve?
I said it sounds like your thesis abstract.
Oh yeah. I just thought like, let me just throw it in.
But no, I think it's great that you guys are looking at it. And even I myself, I didn't know that I was doing this, but I think there is this thing. I don't know if the world is doing it consciously, but there is this neglect of African talent, right? And I don't know, and we'll go into this because obviously when I was looking to work with you guys, there were certain questions that I asked you, right? Because I wanted to know, because I'm African. I go to Africa at least every couple of years. I know the challenges that we face as a continent and things like that, right? But one of the things that I will say that is unique about us Africans and our work ethics, not only are we smart, but we go above and beyond, right? And in the workplace, any manager, any supervisor that works with us as Africans, African Americans, however you choose to identify, but we are very hardworking people. And we are not one of those people that are waiting for you to come and tell us what to do. Once we know our job functionality and we know what we're supposed to do, we take the initiative, right? Because our goal is, we are thought to not be lazy people, right? To work hard, to go above and beyond. And I think the world, that's the piece that the world is missing. And I feel like that's why most employers are sleeping on talent in Africa, because they only focus on the challenges, but there's this aspect of the talent that they haven't tapped into yet. And in saying that, I'm looking at it from the perspective as someone who's hired, several virtual assistants over the years, right? And for anyone who's listening to this call, they can attest to this, that the other continents that we hire from, after a while, everyone gets comfortable, right? They get comfortable and you can tell. Like, I have this one client, she calls me almost every other week, like, Patience, I know these people are not working. I'm going to fire everybody. I'm like, listen, girl, you can't just fire everyone like that. Like, you got to work through it, right? But the point that I'm trying to make is, what I have observed over the years is that after you hire these virtual assistants from these other continents, once they come, maybe like the first 3 months, they're going to be hot on the job. But after they get comfortable, and before you know it, they're reporting the wrong time, right? they're reporting the wrong time, they're actually stealing time from you and things of that nature. They get comfortable. So it's almost like you always have to tell them what to do. And it gets frustrating. And I think that's really what separates the talent that I've experienced so far from your agency compared to the other agencies that I've worked with is that, okay, they come in ready to work, right? I mean, obviously, I'm a business owner. I'm not going to be happy with everything, right? I'm going to find things that I will critique and things like that, right? That's what makes me get in the position that I get into. But in observing them compared to their counterparts, because I do have other virtual assistants from other countries that I work with, in their work ethic, in how they show up to work, in how they interact with me, it's just completely different than the others, right? And I think that's really where the world is sleeping on the talents in Africa. So since you guys are sort of like the middleman right now, I want you guys to talk about, I want you guys to speak to people sleeping on the talent in Africa. What are some of the things that you're seeing in the talent in Africa, right? Compared to, like you said, the counterparts. You've had the chance to work on 3 different continents, right? What would you say is unique in addition to what I have explained, right? What would you say is unique to talent in Africa that made you guys specifically say, because you guys could have opened you guys could have chosen to use talents from other parts of the world. But what about the African talent that made you guys decide that, okay, this is where we're going to pitch our tent and this is where we're going to be sort of like the leaders in this space?
You want to go first?
I can speak on this for years. Yeah, I mean, I think, in addition to like the being driven, growing up, and what we've been taught from a cultural lens that you described, there's been numerous studies and stats about just how intelligent and sort of smart Africans are. Oftentimes, just portrayed in the wrong light, right?
Right.
As you know, with the fans and like all of just other bad actors. But on the other end, I dare anyone to go to any country, any civilized country, go to the hospitals, go to the tech world, go to the businesses, and really see who are the minority leaders and sort of how much of those people are Africans, right? So there's a level of intelligence there that I think is untapped. And I would also say that there's that diversity in terms of skills too, right? That I think that's often neglected, right? So we just sponsored a Harvard program all on the medical and health side from Gtma. So it's not just business, it's not just finance. I think that's the other thing. There's the language, right? Right? If you want folks that can speak, that can communicate
very eloquently too.
very eloquently with you and your client, that's one aspect of it. There's even also the time factor, right? The time difference make it very conducive for folks in Africa and Nigeria to be able to work with folks globally from a time zone perspective. And so those are the things that I think jumps out at me for why. And obviously we're biased, right? Because we know where we came from and we know we still have a relationship with these people. And so we know what they're capable of, right? In addition to some of the things that you mentioned, I would say that the diversity of skills, folks there are very different. That's why you're seeing a lot of countries moving in for those same reasons that I've talked about. You got Asian countries, Middle Eastern countries that are going there, pitching their tent, trying to do business there. Not going to mention some of our clients, but we've had large organizations that are thinking about trying to do some work in Africa because of the diverse skills, the time, the communication skills, the ethics and the drive that our people have. And so those are just, again, I think we can talk about this ad nauseum, but those are some of the things, and even creativity, right? I mean, you think about like from a music, from an artistic standpoint, what music I remember, 12, 15, 20 years ago, you couldn't hear an African song on the radio. Now every other song, is directly from Africa. It's not even like African artists that are in, it is really African artists or you can hear them on the radio. All of our cultures from back home, the slangs are making its way around the world. So there's just a lot there. Like I said, we can talk about this ad nauseum, but those are some of the reasons why, we know that it's an emerging market. And so that's where we kind of want to pitch our tent.
No, I feel you've said everything. I just had to the CNN data that came out about 2 years ago, and was circulating in the social media, talking about the most educated immigrants in the United States: Africans, Nigerians, Liberians. And then, when you think about that data in the data sets, who are those immigrants, right? Who are those most educated, high performing? If you go to health sector, like Steve mentioned, if you go to tech, they're mostly Africans, Nigerians, and where they come from? They come from home. A lot of first generation, second generation, third generation immigrant, and those who are still on the path of transitioning. And so that tells you like where this, there's always this saying that where this come from, there's still a lot back there. Like whatever you're seeing here, that means there's still a lot from where it came from. So, and that's where, one of the things that really inspired us to be on this journey, because we see how most Africans are doing, exceedingly great in this country, in diaspora. And then we know the journey. Like most of us came to be part of this. So, and we have a lot of beyond the intelligence. We have the work ethics, very hardworking, people. And the time zone, is actually part of like my thesis, my dissertation that, Steve mentioned earlier. Like the time zone really helpful between the US or Canada or UK is an average of 1 to 5, 6 hours, which give a good opportunity for every business owner, any enterprise, small business, or even large organizations to be able to tap into that. And also the communication. Most African countries are English speaking countries or French. That gives you a lot of opportunities to tap into that area. And then when you also look at the age brackets, the population in Nigeria or in Africa, they're mostly young, vibrant, agile professionals. So that's why they can show up and stay longer, because that energy is still there, that excitement is still there. And of course, I think I mentioned the age, the time zone, the communication. Those are things that really position Africa to, of course, don't get me wrong, we have all the challenges when it comes to electricity, when it comes to security, when it comes to even the reputation. But, there's always the danger of single stories. Like we can't focus on one side. We also have to make sure that we embrace the other side too.
And then also like a lot of these young people, they're hungry, right? And I have conversation all the time. I'm like, it's almost like these people don't want to work. Like, but speaking of the other, the counterparts now, but something about the African talent, they're hungry. Like, it's like they have that hunger. There's that thing within them that's missing. Even if you hire talent in the US, one thing, especially with what I do in my industry, we need hungry people. And I always say, like, when I started, the level of hunger that I had, the level of tenacity that I had, it's hard to see that like anymore. I'm not saying that it stops with me. I'm sure like there are unicorns out there, but it's just that hunger, that drive, that need. Maybe it's in a different sector, but I haven't seen it. I'm not seeing it. If you see it, it's like a needle within a haystack, right? So I think that is what's on the continent right now. The people are there, they're hungry. They're eager to be given opportunity and they want to do the work if you give them the right tools and you set them up to be successful. But there's one thing that both of you guys touch on, which is you said 419, you called it challenges. And I want us to debunk that because at the end of the day, no one can tell me that there aren't scammers from India, right? No one can tell me that there aren't scammers from the Philippines. No one can tell me that there aren't scammers from Jamaica or from Brazil or from where, all around the world, right? But for some reason, I feel like people focus on the negative things that come out of Africa. Even with those of us who have come in the diaspora, we've proven, right, that although, yes, there are people who obviously they're lazy, they want to take advantage of the system, and they want to take advantage of the internet and scam people. Yes, there are those people. But I also want us to talk to the fact that people shouldn't focus on the negative part of Africa or the negative things that just a small fraction of people do. Because if you really do the math, it's just a fraction of people who are doing, but it seems like that's what gets the airtime, right?
Yeah.
That's what gets the social media highlight, and that's what gets the attention. So I want us to talk about that, and I want us to debunk that for people who are hesitant because they feel like, oh, I can't hire talent from Africa because of 419 or
Yeah.
scamming or X, Y, and Z.
So no, you and I touched on it closing my my remark earlier. There's Shimamanda, I believe I pronounced her name correctly, and pardon me if someone here and but Shimamanda Ngozi Adichie, it's about 16 years ago, she had this TED talk and talked about the danger of single story. And what's really interesting about that, and it's one of the cornerstone for MPG and how we celebrate. You talked earlier, you talked about MPG recognizing and celebrating you, and it was on that premise that we took ownership of the narrative. And it's part of what Gtma is also doing, because what the media does is they focus on the one, not even 1%, the 0.1% bad eggs, which is everywhere. There's, bad people everywhere, and not just in Africa or in Nigeria. And so they focus on that one side, and the media takes that and just hammer on it and speak every day and get to people's consciousness. Same thing when people hear about Africa, the first thing that comes to their mind is poverty. Or they feel like everywhere in Africa is like, people are sleeping on the streets, and they don't even talk about the Banana Island. They don't even talk about the Atlantic. They don't talk about those eyebrows, like places that is even more beautiful than a lot of other places in the US. It's the way the media position. Part of what we are doing from the MPG side, GTMA in particular, is to change that narratives and help the world to see that even though there are these challenges, but this still stand. Like, there are great people, there are smart, intelligent, young professionals, to your point, testing, hungry, looking for a great opportunity to demonstrate their skills. And that's the kind of people that we are working with. And in addition to that, we are also being mindful of the concern from the global lens and making sure that there is data security, all of those areas, we are also addressing them. And I'll let Steve just add to that part, like what we are doing on our side to address those concerns.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a CNBC article on actually was a documentary, and I'm not gonna say the country's name because I don't want anybody to come after me. But it was an European country, and that was the largest fraud and scheme bust ever. And it wasn't in Africa. From a tech side, like I said, I'm very biased and I'm an historian. A lot of people don't know that AWS actually started in South Africa, right? People think, I'm not talking about the other Amazon products, but the web services itself started in South Africa. And so, you mentioned debunking those sort of myths, right? Those are one-offs. There are scammers here every day on the street that I see, right? So if we want to generalize that, we can. But I think, from a business and entrepreneur mindset, if you're open-minded and you kind of look beyond what's portrayed in the media, there's a ton of opportunities for you to tap into the hunger that you guys mentioned, right? Because the reason why I think people are driven is because of their circumstances, right? These people figure that, how many of us on this call have heard growing up, education is gonna open doors for you. And it has, it has opened doors for a lot of us. And I think, you guys talked a little bit about the tip of the iceberg that people are getting here. The companies are getting here, the companies are getting globally. There's a lot more. There's 90% of the iceberg is still underwater. It's still back home. And so those are the things that if you're open-minded and you can critically think, you can tap into that. So, I work in this space of, data, AI, and security. We are actively working to build infrastructure around there. Within Gtma, we've put together lots of, we just rolled out some of the talents that you have working with you from our side. Patience can tell you, but we just rolled out some new initiative around like the use of AI for clients' data and things of that nature as AI continues to proliferate. But we've been doing that with even just basic technology. What does that look like? We have a ton of folks that are, I will put them against anybody in any Western society in terms of their AI and data knowledge and security sort of framework that they put in place, not only within for us internally as Gtma, but also at our client side. So there's just a lot there. I would just encourage your listeners to not only be more open-minded, but also be self-critical and quickly think outside the box for themselves and think, okay, well, if every time I go to a hospital, I'm talking to some foreigner, right? Or every time, so like just think there's more where that came from, as you guys alluded to. So I just want to add that piece to it.
Awesome. So there's also another side that I do want us to talk on, because obviously we know that Africa does have its challenges, right? And again, with me being African, my hesitation in the beginning when Kay approached me about the opportunity to work together was I thought about all the challenges that could have made it not be possible, right? But I think what you guys have done as the months have gone by, it's really helped me with the help. Whomever your manager is, she's great, right? She's great in with her being proactive. Now, obviously, that came from me being like, no, make sure she does this, you know what I mean, in the beginning. But I think I want us to talk to the challenges, because obviously it's not perfect, right? And I know things are not going to be fixed overnight, right? But at the end of the day, sometimes where people see dirt, right, others see diamond, right?
Right.
And that's how I was looking at it. And then I was like, you know what? All these other countries, they have their challenges too, right?
Right.
But I'm still working with them. So maybe I can be vocal about whatever my challenges would be once we start working together, and make sure that they get it, they fix whatever challenges that I needed to work on. So in the beginning when we talked, or when Abby and we talked, one of the things that I told her, I'm like, listen, I need people with strong internet, right? We know internet connectivity in Africa as a whole is one of the biggest challenges right now. But since we're talking about you guys and the services that you offer, I do want you guys to talk to us about what are you guys doing from your end, from an employer's perspective, or from a service employer's perspective. What are you guys doing to fix those challenges so that you make sure that it's not something that your clients have to encounter, or it's not something that's a hurdle or a struggle for the clients that you work with in the diaspora?
Yeah, I can jump in first, Kay, and I know you probably have a lot more from a socioeconomic standpoint because Kay spent a lot more time, unfortunately, in Nigeria than I do.
And his PhD, he wants to get all the information in this one.
Exactly. But I would say, like, obviously, the biggest challenge is infrastructure, Patience, and that's not a people challenge, right? I just want that to be clear, right? That's more systemic.
Right.
We can talk about the government. We can blame the government with that one. And you mentioned, internet, but also electricity. Some of the basic necessities of life, water, things of that nature that, people still struggle with access to have. When I say water, I mean like actually people being like sick more than usual because they don't have access to some clean water and, some of the basic stuff, right? So those are some of the challenges that we've faced. We've lost some opportunities. Again, just being transparent, just for people to understand like how grand some of these are. We've lost some opportunities because we don't have a quote unquote space where we can have a call center type of environment where we can employ hundreds of people, right away, like you can in some other places that do have the infrastructure set up, right? So it's impacting us as business owners. Yeah. So just I wanted to send the context of everything is not roses. There's a lot of work to be done, but the things that we're doing to help different clients, whether they're in the services, they're in the product side of the house, we'll put a lot of stuff in place, right? Think about things like VPN, how to protect your data and access, making sure we provide dedicated equipment for folks, whether that's from the smallest things like headset to make sure that they can hear each other properly. There's not a ton of noise because people are having to turn on fans and AC. Those are small logistical things like that you have to think about when you're operating in that sense. Think about security for our people, right? When they're moving around, going to different places, how secure is it for them? How are they being secure? And then we've identified places where people can work that have more reliable internet, power. We have a couple offices, a couple different regions across Nigeria, both in the north and then also in Lagos, where people can actually go in there and physically work and support our clients wherever they might be located, right? So those are some of the things that we've put in place. And then obviously from a technical and an IT standpoint, there's some things that I'm not gonna get into that are a little more proprietary, but we do some things to make sure that our people can do their job in a timely manner, but are also making sure that our clients are protected and they can feel at ease that the person that's on the other end that's working for them is not only going to be reliable, but also consistent. And so they can rest easy. But again, I know that's only a subset of the challenges and some of the things that we're doing. So, Kay, if you have anything else to add, I'll let you jump in.
You kind of it's some of the points. I just had to, one of the biggest challenge, it's the reputation. We talked about, the way the world see Africa, even the talents when it comes to fraud and integrity and stuff like that. Of course, the infrastructure, internet, electricity, security, data securities, and all that you mentioned, we are addressing that. So from the reputational standpoint, which is also the same with every organization here in the US, we make sure, number one, our hiring process is very, very detailed. We make sure that we put the right skills forward. The skills match, the talent skills match the job description as for effectiveness. And then secondly, we employ the service of a legal team, our legal partners, in conducting a very thorough background checks. We do not just even the background checks, we also make sure there's a police report, there's fingerprints for certain level of jobs. Just so that, and we share all those details with the client. This is one for us to create that level of comfort around the talent we're putting for, because we know our talent is going to be working on sensitive. Again, this is, but even if you're some folks works on the United States citizen and they work on government contract, they sign different agreements and they do all that kind of background check. So it's not like we're doing anything. Yeah. But for us, we're building those measures to create that level of comfort for our client. And we share all the details of the background checks. And because our organization is also responsible, even though those talent works for our client, but we as an organization, we're responsible for any loss or damages. So we make sure that everything is all good on the front before we put those clients forward. So when it comes to that challenges and concern around reputation and integrity and things that, we've heard in the news from the media, we are working and making sure that our talents are not just the best fit, but they culturally fit and also they are not a risk.
Yeah. And I think that that's really where it's not just going to take work from just you guys. I think that's going to be a job of everybody, a job that everybody globally needs to be conscious about, because at the end of the day, you can't just put every African in the same bucket to say, you know what, at the end of the day, like we won't be doing business on this continent because of the stats, you know what I mean, of a small group of people. And I think sometimes people forget that Africa is a huge continent, right? People forget that Africa is a huge continent and that the people genuinely just want to succeed, right? The people genuinely just want to succeed. People genuinely want to come out of poverty. And I hope that as the world shifts, that people's mindset about Africa and people's mindset about the continent and the people from the continent, it starts to shift. So I do want us to talk about what the future looks like, right? I mean, we've kind of like touched here and there on it, but when you guys look at what you see now, obviously in the US, both of you guys work for multi-billion-dollar companies. We're not naming any names on here. But you guys work for multi-billion-dollar companies, and you have experience working with folks globally. What would you guys say the future looks like for workforce in general? And I'm only sticking to that because obviously you talent, HR related stuff, that's just space, right? So what would you say the future looks like when it comes to talent management and when it comes to just the global workforce in general?
So when we started, you mentioned how this conversation, the business relationship started from last year at the UN conference in New York. And a lot of the conversation there was around the future of business. And there were a lot of conversation around business process, outsourcing, the BPO, and even other areas, what tech. Right now, we have a lot of like great tech startup from Nigeria, from Africa that are doing great. And so there's a prediction that I believe 2030 or 2035, most businesses, if you look at what China and all of these key countries are doing right now, everyone is trying to position themselves to do business with Africa, position themselves in Africa. And so the future from the global space is Africa. And if the destination is Africa, then African talents will also be, when it comes to the human capital, which we already have, African talents is already positioned, and we're just looking for that. And that's part of what we're doing. And other organizations are already jumping on these opportunities to know that we are getting ready. I think right now we're prime and we're ready, and we're already, and the world is beginning to see a lot of the fine stuff that we talked about, like when we talk about the smartness, the intelligence, the dedication, the hard working, the time zone, the age, and all that. The future, which I believe probably that future might not even be up to 5 years from now. A lot of things, everybody is going back to Africa for different business opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, I think, the future is bright. I'm a very optimistic person. And I say the future is bright on a number of different fronts. You mentioned, just from the lens of workforce AI, where I work, seeing the workforce is shifting, and it's shifting by the minute. The tools that we're using, the fact that you hear about layoffs all the time. Kay and I talk about, I mentioned earlier at the onset, every challenge is an opportunity, right? What does that mean for us at Gtma? How do we empower both small, medium, and large organizations in this new world of AI, and how it's impacting the workforce? How is, in some ways helping or hurting folks align and get a job and get the services that they need? So for me, I think the future is bright on all sides. I think, the other thing, from the talent specifically within Africa, is the rate that folks are picking things up and learning the new tech that are out there. I think is only going to be better and effective for them. One of the things that we offer that, we didn't get into is we offer a tremendous amount of training, both from an HR, skills development perspective, even executive level training. We do a ton of work with entrepreneurs as well. to kind of learn what's going on. We just had a webinar today, and during the webinar, we was talking a lot about these tools that folks can use. The webinar was primarily for people within our organization and aspiring talent that want to join our organization, and it was free for folks to kind of learn what's new out there, how can they equip themselves and be ready positioned in case a patient Noah come call in, or we have other people that are looking for them, so they can stay ready and they don't have to get ready, right? Yeah. So again, I'm very optimistic about the future, specifically to the workforce and what we can provide for companies across the globe, right? I'm not just talking about it in a specific industry. I think mostly more horizontal across the board, from government through medical. So I'm very excited for where we are, how we've sort of positioned ourselves, and we're growing too, right? Like I said, it's a fast pace of change, and I think we're doing our best to stay on top of it.
So I probably should have asked this question before I asked this last question, but what would you say was the challenges that you guys faced in the beginning of starting GTMA? What would you say? I know there are many. There's probably like 20 of them. But what would you say were those core challenges that you guys faced when it came to starting GTMA in Africa? Because I know over here it's easy, like things can happen snap, right? Yeah. But what was the challenges that you guys were facing on the diaspora when you first started in the beginning? And how did you maneuver those challenges?
Actually, Kay, do you want to go, or do you want me to tackle this?
No, you can go.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like you mentioned, there's a lot of challenges, right? I mean, the first one is how do we operate such a business like from here, right? Yeah. Because this is service-based, it's a people-based work. While we mentioned our mission is to change people's lives, we do want to make sure that we work with the right people, right? And so now physically being there is a challenge. We talked about the infrastructure piece, that's not a one-person job. Kay and I, as talented and connected as we are, we cannot make the Nigerian government provide electricity. We cannot give people access to internet. Like, it's just not something that we can do that's beyond us. Mm-hmm. So understanding what are some of the things that we needed to have in place, I think that's critical, that's important. Our biggest asset, like many organizations talk about, is our people. And for us, it's really about, we're in the people business, right? So for us, it's about how do we find the right people that can drive our day-to-day operations as we continue to do the things that we need to do on our side here. Those are some of the like the key challenges. And then, we face the challenge that every other business owners face around business development, particularly doing business development with some of the backdrop of the things we've talked about earlier on this call, right? With the reputation and the brand and everything else that the Africa has, the Nigeria has. How do we overcome that? And it takes a ton of nourishing relationship that we have with people like yourself, and sort of cultivating that and saying, look, there are these challenges, and these challenges are real, but we're putting our own reputation on the line. These are the things that we've done to ensure that we can move forward and do business together. Lots of challenges. We still face challenges, but I think we are, we've done a ton. As you and I, was chatting before, I think it's important when you come to this kind of business to work diligently in the beginning to set a foundation that is easy to kind of build upon, rather than, start the building and then start building the foundation, right? So that's one of the things that Kay and I were deliberate about, is let's make sure that we don't cut any corners, understanding that this is going to take time to build, right? But let's set the right foundation. So as we move the pieces on top of that foundation, that's the easy work to do versus trying to go down to the roots again and starting all over, right? So yeah, I'll let Kay jump in.
You covered, as when Patience had that question, I had to nudge myself, like, am I going to give the citation answers for my PhD, or am I just going to, like, I'm on the podcast, so okay, just come back. And there's in my thesis, I called it institutional void. Those institutional void and everything that we've talked about, the political space and some of even policies operating in two different continents, and we had two different problem statements. Specific problem statement for the small medium enterprise that are in US, because for us we want to help them to scale.
Yeah.
We want to help them to be able to make profits, and we also want their support their operation to be more efficient, right? And by providing the right talent that can help them to achieve those goals and give those business mind. At the same time, we also look at the talents back home in Africa and the policies and all that, So it was very challenging at the beginning, and still very challenging right now. We continue to learn and just continue to figure that out. And we just walking through as we we had those problem statement and said, okay, how do we solve for each one at a time? We're not trying to solve for everything at once. There's been a lot of like lesson learned. We've been part of some investment or events back home, which, at the end of the day, we thought like, okay, maybe this doesn't really make sense. And we need to refine our operating model to be able to. And we've also learned a lot, like even working with you, some of the feedback and all that. So a lot of those challenges, we're treating them individually. And when I say individually, one is from the small and medium enterprise lens in the US, and then also from our operation in Africa, in Nigeria, and just looking at from individual talent and also at the country level, how the policies and the political, there are times there are some issues happening, and we just have to ask our talent, like, okay, just, we had one of our operational manager, director who live in Jos. And for a week, there was some terrorist attack and all that. So for us as a leader, we have to position and make sure, like, our talent first, everything is okay. So we react, and we also proactive depending on what is going on.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. And then I have one more question for you guys. It's along the same line. If you can take a step back and really visually go through the journey of what you've encountered, because I think Gtma, you guys have been around for like, what, 2 years now? Going on 2 years?
Yeah.
Okay.
April, we'll say 2 years. But we actually started the operation like last year. So
remember what I said, we spent a lot of time on their foundation pieces.
On the foundation piece.
Okay. Yeah. So if you can do a mental check and basically talk to someone who is sitting here thinking, and Steve, you and I were talking about this in the beginning, where we're like, people start business these days hoping to make millions of dollars in like the first few years, right? And we talked about the fact that there's a difference between profit and revenue, right? Those are two different things. But if you guys can take a step back, do a mental check, and just give someone advice that's saying that, okay, I'm going to come from here, because there are people who might listen to this conversation and be like, well, you know what? If they're doing it, me too, I can do it. And I want people to think like that, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But I don't want people making decisions without also considering the challenges that comes with what you guys do, right? So I want you guys to basically advise someone. Maybe they might not start a business just like yours, but just doing a business in general on the continent. What advice would you say are the first few things that they should put in place before officially launching on ground?
Let me just say first, and this applies to everything you do, you can't hide your passion. If you're passionate about something, it makes it even much easier. What you do, PN, you're very passionate about it. You're helping different individuals and businesses with their insurance and taking up all that, issues off their plates, and just being in because you love what you do. So for us, I would say for anyone who wants to be on this path or whatever path, you just have to believe and be passionate about it, and really understand why, because there are days when you're going to question yourself. And you always have to go back to the why you started in the first place.
Yeah.
And for me, the why for me, apart from like it's a profit organization and we want to, continue to scale and continue to grow. The part of the why is just see the smiles, giving someone a talent, an opportunity in the global space. And we know unemployment rates globally is continue to go high. And we talked about layoff and being able to see someone who get placed by organization, and I know what that means to him or her, to the immediate family,
Right.
and to his environment, and what that person can do. So you have to know the why. And days of when things really get high, you always have to go back to that why. The third part is they have to be prepared. We have also on our team another co-founder who is actually on maternity leave, who is based who anchors and lead our Nigerian operation. So you have to have someone who is really reliable and understand the environment within the country that you want to operate in, because that's very important. There's a lot of policies, there's a lot of things that you need someone to be on ground to really help, to be able to help you to facilitate or handle. Those are few things that comes to mind.
Yeah, I think I'll just rattle off some list. Patience, like, one, get good partners, good people that you trust, that you can work with. It doesn't have to be family members, but you guys probably should operate as, as close in that nature. You need to understand the legal aspect and the ramifications of what you're doing. For us, I mentioned we're operating in different countries, different continent, have a lawyer, again, part of the people, your team around you that you can trust, that you can go to as needed. The passion piece, I think, is twofold, right? Like understanding why you're doing what you're doing, but not just for our talent in this case, but also for people like you, right? Like people, they're business owners, and helping them continuing to make their dreams come alive and do the things that they want to do. I think is the other piece of the reason why, when it's tough, we get up, we keep pushing through. The whole piece earlier when we talked about profit and revenue, I think it's a little bit of perseverance in the sense that, in the first, they always teach us in B school, right? As I talked about, like the first 3 years, if you break even each of those years, you should be lucky, right? You shouldn't expect to make anything until year 5, right? So the profit you don't see that until after year 3. So whatever revenue that you generate, and use that to continue to grow your business, invest back in your organization and yourself, do it for the right reason, learn your industry, right? For us, we're still learning our industry, be open-minded, don't go in there because someone told you that they're making this or this is what they do. There's a lot more behind the scenes. So spend the time to understand exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Learn the space, learn the geo nature, and then understand how the micro forces and the macro forces impact what you're doing, right? So in our case, the administration, the wars, AI, like all of the different trends directly impact our services. So we talked a lot about, Kay mentioned earlier, how does the conflict in Africa affect our people? What are the things that we need to do to put in place? Who's going to support Abby in talking to patients and managing the day-to-day operation? What does this administration and they're sort of tied down, what does that do for us being able to secure opportunities for our people? So yes, and to me, all of that is about understanding your business and sort of learning the ropes when it comes to that. So and I would say, lastly, for me, find good mentors and good people that you can tap into. Again, kind of tying it back to that team. People, whether they've been in the business or they've ran a business, or just people that you can go back and talk to all the time, right? Like a lot of times, we face challenges and we need to tap into people and say, hey, what do you think about this? How should we go about it here? We have our founders meeting, and oftentimes we invite someone to come and talk to us, right? And kind of share their experiences with us. And so those are some of the things that I think has worked for us. Obviously, we talked about earlier, we're still learning, we're still on a journey, but those are some of the things we can share. Maybe when you bring us back, we'll have a lot more to.
Well, definitely. You guys will definitely come back, because as the relationship grows, obviously, we'll talk, because obviously I do want to encourage more people to consider talent in Africa, obviously, because we're all from Africa. And that's what the future is. So this will definitely be an ongoing. I don't know if I'll bring you back in the next 2 years, but let's see how it goes. But I want you guys to tell us, what is the future of GTMA? And GTMA stands for Global Talent Management.
Global Talent Manager Africa.
Okay, GTMA, Global Talent Manager Africa. So what does the future, because I know right now you guys are saying Nigeria, because I just want people to be clear that the intentions and the long-term goal is not only to stick to Nigeria, but also have talents all across Africa. So I don't want to be buried under the conversation. So I want you guys to shed light on what the future of GTMA looks like and what we should expect from you guys in the near future and in the far future.
No, that's a good question, and thank you for even highlighting the Africa Nigeria part.
Yeah.
We currently have ambassadors in about 5 countries.
Okay.
In Ghana, in South Africa, in Uganda, and not in Liberia yet, maybe Congo.
But
Got a guy in
why?
London.
There are other countries. Why did you have to?
No, I just, so our goal is to expand. What we've done the last, going to about 10 months of full scale operation is testing with Nigerian and with the Nigerian market. And then even though we currently have our ambassadors, we have talents. In our data bank right now, we have talent from different part of Africa. And so our goal in the next 1-2 years is to have about 1 million talents that we can work in with different clients, with different small, medium enterprise in the US, UK, and Canada, and be able to provide that service. And part of it is also to have more a centralized data center to continue to address that data security and stuff like that. So there's more. We also looking to have a conference where we're gonna bring talent together at different countries. We bring talent and we bring business owners to meet talent in the physical space, and maybe at that point we get to fly you down to Nigeria and clock it. Clock it. We get to fly you down to Nigeria as one of the speaker, to meet with those talents real time, and just being in their midst and just really appreciate more. It's different from when you're on the phone. And so there's a lot for us in the pipeline that we're working. We recently launched, and you're going to be seeing that more on our social media platform. We launched what we call the career clinic.
Okay.
Really using that to help professionals at different levels, executive, mid-level, entry level leaders to fix. So it's really going to be you take your career to a consultant or a surgeon and help diagnose and help you talk through and help you through whether mentorship or depending on what areas of challenges. So we're not just offering recruitment service, we're also offering all these other services like training, like career clinic, where we're going to be helping a lot of careers and professionals to find their tune, find their rhythm within their career path. So I can keep going, but let Steve also add.
No, I love how you're very prescriptive and very tactical. I would have definitely be a little bit more proprietary in some of the things that I'm not going to share as much as Kay did in terms of some of our organizational goal, but I'll probably keep it more at a strategic level. I think we want to increase our footprint, right? And we want to increase our impact. And so when I say that, Kay talked about some of the actual tactical things that we're going to do to make some of those come to light, but we want to impact more lives, right? We want to be able to get more talent, more opportunities and we want to help countries, companies, and countries alike within Africa continue to grow, and that's part of that increasing our footprint that I mentioned. So organizations in Nigeria that are also startups, right, that need help. We've worked with some, we offer some training to some of those guys, help those guys as well. You'll be surprised, right? I think one of the things that I've learned being in this space is we don't have that HR and talent sort of infrastructure within the country, within the continent. As Kay mentioned, we have ambassadors in different places. We had some people tell us from another country in Southern Africa that was saying, hey, we need this help. We need these resources. We need people, companies, conglomerates, being able to connect to talent within the countries themselves. And so I think for me, I just think that's why I said the future is bright earlier. And I think, again, I think for me, it's more, how do we increase our footprint both within the continent, and then how do we continue to impact more lives outside of Nigeria? And so those are the two sort of big aspirations that we have. And there's a lot of work, there's a lot of things that we're going to do to bring some of those to life. And then how do we change that perspective from some of these larger organizations to make sure that they can trust Gtma and subsequently trust African talent for some of their more critical business needs. Again, I'm excited for where we're going and how we can continue to work together to.
Well, there's two things I'm excited about in hearing both of you talk. One, I'm looking forward to that ticket, for me too. And you said it on this podcast, so we can always look it up. I can always look it up and be like, guys, remember when you said this?
It's okay. We'll bring it down during December.
Oh, you see, now you guys are even you're asking me you more. No, but I think what you guys are doing is amazing. I look forward to continuing to grow the relationship, continuing to work, and also continuing to develop talent on the continent. And I'm just happy to be working with you guys because, obviously, Kay, you know me outside of just the professional world, but I think it's great what we're doing, right? Regardless if you're from Liberia, you're from Rwanda, you're from South Africa, but I think it's great that we're not forgetting about our people that are back home. We see the talent back home and we all are at a place that we're like, you know what? No, we need to shed some light on this. We can't leave our people behind. There's so many talents back home and we need to make sure that the world see what we see, right? Or what we were once part of or what we are part of. So I think that's great and I commend you guys. I know it's a lot of challenges, but just keep chipping at it. It's going to get small. The challenges are going to get easier and easier. And also know that every level comes with its own challenges, right? So the challenges is never going to get any easier. And as you guys grow, you're never going to be any less busy. That's what I tell people. I'm like, no, at the stage that I'm at with my business, I'm never going to get any less busy. So if you do want to see me or if you do want to hang out, reach out to me. Let's make time. But if you're waiting for me to be less busy, possibly.
Not gonna happen.
Yeah, it may never happen. And where I'm going is just intentionality now, where I'm selective about who I hang out with, which rooms you see me in, which networking events you see me at, and things like that. So I want you guys to keep that in mind as you grow. You're only gonna get bigger and bigger because I know the continent is a huge continent and there's no greater people to lead the charge for talent management than the two of you. So I have a lot of faith in you guys because I was one of the first people you started with. I was one of your first clients. So I have faith in you guys. I'm counting on you guys. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I've stopped recording.